Good evening. I want to welcome everyone to our Youth Expressions 2, and we're really excited to have some of our first-time voters with us this evening, and I'd like to introduce our town hall speakers.
Well, hello. My name is Asia Body. I am a student at Tennessee State University. I am 18 years old. I'm a first-time voter. I just recently graduated from Stivers School for the Arts, and I'm excited to be voting this year.
Hello, everybody. My name is Chaz Amos. I'm a political science major at Sinclair, and I'm excited to be here to talk about youth voter engagement.
Well, I'm a longtime voter, and I'm really excited that we have youth that are excited about the political process. And so we've got quite a few questions to ask them today because we're really interested in what they think about the political climate, what's happening in our country, and to kind of hear some interesting perspectives that I don't think that we've heard in a while. So I want to start with, as new voters, you're an important building block of our country and the voting process. What issues are you most passionate about right now?
Well, I would have to say an important subject that's happening right now that I believe is very, very important would have to be the Black Lives Matter movement. Right now, as we've had several different tragedies, several different situations that aren't really being addressed, I think, correctly by our presidential area. So I feel like it's really important. And also just the government in general, I feel like it's not being taken as seriously as we take it. Our people and just people in the community in general who feel some type of connection to the subject and also are affected by it. I feel like it's not being taken as seriously, so I feel like I'm very passionate about making a change and making sure that whoever's in charge and leading us as a united nation is going to be taking into consideration our feelings and what's going on and not just thinking about it in a selfish manner.
It's a very powerful answer, Chaz.
So I was excited to vote this year. One of the things, well, not so much of an issue, but one of the things that I've been wanting to focus on is voting locally. So yes, the presidential election is very important, but nothing can be more important than your local elections. Your local elections, I mean your mayor, commissioners, judges, coroners, everybody, because ultimately these are the people who affect your everyday decisions, the air you breathe, what day your trash gets taken out, how your sewage gets fixed. So throughout this whole process, this being my first time voting, that's been one of the main things that I've been focusing on, local elections.
Excellent. Yeah, I think there's so much publicity about the presidential election, and a general election does that. But you're absolutely right. There are judges, there are commissioners, there are state representatives, and you need to be informed about that as well. So have you kept yourself informed about the issues?
Well, I'm going to be honest. As a teenager, I definitely could do a better job because why go vote if I don't know exactly what's going on completely? So I try to keep up on social media. I try to watch the different presidential debates, watch the different meetings or the rallies, different things like that, so I can hear the different perspectives, and even making sure that I'm involved in my city, making sure I know who's on the ballot for those around me, because a lot of teenagers, you go up and ask them who's on the ballot, they'll only be able to tell you two names, and that's Trump and Biden. They wouldn't be able to tell you who's on their ballots around their local, like Chad said, our local people, the people who have something to do with our everyday lives. So, yes.
Wonderful. Chaz, how are you keeping abreast of the issues?
Yeah, so there are many ways. So when I first start trying to figure out, what are some of the issues that the presidential candidates, are trying to combat, basically, I went to Google and I just basically typed in Donald Trump's platform and then Joe Biden's platform, and I noticed that one of the most important things, especially with voting, learn to form your own opinion. I'm not going to dislike a presidential candidate for the same reason the next person does. I'm going to go and find my own reason why I like or dislike that candidate. So I just go on Google, and it's easy to find if you type in a political party or a political candidate's name or website. It'll pop up, all of their morals, their values, what they stand for and believe in. So that's pretty much how I stay afloat about all the issues, just going on social media, or not social media, but Google, and finding credible sources. So.
Credible sources, that's a key word. And I think you have to inform yourself and be educated about what the issues are. Exceptional responses. Okay, many people have endured a lot of horrendous things just for the right to vote. And I think that there are a lot of people that are taking that for granted now. Why do you think people take such a basic right to vote for granted?
I'm going to answer from a youth perspective. I feel like I think we're all still children in a way, honestly. Us as children, we've always known, like, okay, it's okay, mom and dad can go vote, and I'll be able to vote one day, so we don't really think about how it was for people before us. My grandmother is almost 80 years old, and I know that it was not always a right for, especially women itself, and me being a woman, it wasn't always a right for someone to vote. And I feel like we take that for granted because we've only seen our parents go out and vote on voting day, or election day. We already know that we've been taught in school, like, go out and vote, do this, that, and the third, but I feel like we're not taught our history. Yes, we may know little things, know this, know that, but I feel like we don't know enough, so we need to educate ourselves more so we can understand and know it hasn't always been a right, and we don't need to take that for granted because our ancestors did too much to get us to this point, especially those of the African American race. So I feel like it's really important that we educate ourselves and stop taking it for granted because it's not a luxury. It hasn't always been a luxury to vote. I feel like it's really important that we take initiative and go out and do something that we've worked hard for and not take it for granted.
Chaz?
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest reasons why people have taken voting for granted is simply, people haven't been shown what a candidate's work can do. So I'll say locally, for example, if you vote in a mayor or a commissioner or a judge, and one day, those judges have, or those commissioners have, let you down, you lose trust in them. So I think that's just repeated itself in history so many times that people have started to lose trust in politicians and these different elected officials to the point where they're not even interested in voting. They're not interested. They think that their voice has been condensed. So I think that's one of the biggest reasons why people have taken voting for granted. So.
Yeah, in the last general election, 91 million people chose not to vote, and that's a horrific number. But you both are on fire, and I'm excited that you're on fire. What other things have you done to get involved in getting out the vote with your peers, your family? Can you share some of those things?
Well, I feel like me being as young as I am, and I won't say I have a lot of friends, but I do have a lot of followers on social media, and I try to talk to people all the time I ask my friends all the time, are you going to go vote? Are you doing this and the third? Because not only do I have adults that are mentors and people I know who go to my church, family members asking me all the time, are you registered to vote? Are you registered to vote? Are you registered to vote? So I feel like it's a big thing for me to be able to go out and talk to my peers and talk to my friends, talk to the different people I see on a day-to-day basis that are my age, because those are people I come in contact with the most. So I feel like that's where I would have more of an effect at. So I try to talk to them as much as possible, get on social media, share as much as I can. And I love that I've seen a lot of the younger African-American celebrities trying to talk to us as well, because this year alone I've seen so much support from them, because normally you don't see that. Yes, it's election day, but I feel like especially because it's the presidential election, people are trying to put more support towards it. But I feel like as just any election in general, like last year, I feel like we should have seen a lot more voters. Like you said, 91 million, that is really a really high number, and it's ridiculous. I feel like we need to do more and get that number down. So I just try to tell people all the time, if you don't vote, those reasons that you said that you weren't going to vote, people tell me all the time, well, I'm not going to vote because is it really going to matter? I said it's a whole bunch of you who keep saying that same thing, which is why we never can get a change.
Yeah, I agree. I say the same thing. This past, I believe, I want to say 2 months, about two and a half months ago, I dedicated a whole week for my social media to be about nothing but voting. So I ended up helping about 25, 26 of the people that I used to go to school with. I helped them register to vote, and also reminded them, don't just register, make sure you actually go and vote. But don't just actually go and vote, actually research who you're voting for before you get there. So when you're at the ballot, you're not sitting there with a blank face trying to figure out who such and such is. So I think just making sure that, everyone is informed. That's kind of been my whole piece and everything, helping people with that. So
I think that's an admirable thing that you helped other people understand the importance of getting registered, understanding that voting just doesn't start and end with registration, because a lot of people will tell you they're registered voters. And I'm sure that 91 million people that we talked about, because we knew they didn't vote, that's pretty scary. I now want to turn a question about something that I know that impacts college students, and that's student loans. And we know that both parties have different approaches to how they're going to approach student loan debt. Do you have any views on student loan debt and what the candidates are saying about that? And I'd like to hear from each of you.
I'll go. My perspective on the whole student loan situation, after so long, people are going to start to realize that there's a system. After so long, it's not going to add up when, okay, people will make more money when they have an education, but people have to go into debt in order to get that education to make more money, which completely makes no sense. I feel that, college it should be a privilege, to everyone who wants to thrive in this country, everyone who wants to live comfortably in this country. You shouldn't have to worry about how you're going to pay for school next semester, or even next year, or even dropping out of school because you simply didn't have the money, or you're just too much in debt. So that's my stance on student loans.
Well, I feel like as a first-time college student, going into this process of looking for different schools and comparing their costs, there are many bright young ladies and gentlemen who look at these schools that they want to go to and they talk to mom and dad, and it's really sad when your mom and dad say, well, honey, I know you're smart and you got in, but we can't afford it. It doesn't matter how many scholarships you apply to. Sometimes it's generally just not enough. There are so many kids out here who are less fortunate and can't afford to go to school that there's not enough money to go around. So, yes, I do understand that all of these professors and all of these different resources and these different programs have to get funded some way, somehow, but it shouldn't be at the expense of our education. I have close friends who have had to leave school because their parents didn't get enough loans or there wasn't enough scholarships coming through, and I've seen some people heavily apply. Me, myself, I applied to multiple different scholarships, and I'm glad I decided to stay home because of COVID, because I don't have to pay for anything right now. But when I go next fall, and it's time for me to pay for those books and that tuition, I'm gonna have to take out some loans. So, and later on in life, like Chad said, you make all of this money because you got a good education, but all of that money that you work hard to earn, you have to give right back to your education. So it's hard for you to really get your life off the ground and really start and build a life for your family. My dad has a lot of student loans, and it was hard for us to do a lot of different things because we had to, we had to put some money aside so we can pay off dad's loans. And it's kind of hard to live when you're constantly held back by your past and the different things that you do. So I feel like, as he said, it should be a privilege, but I feel like you should work for it to be a privilege, not just given to any child who, wants to go to school and flunks out. That's not what it should be for. I feel like, yes, student loans should be kind of exempt, but it has to be to a certain not characteristic, but to a certain level. You should have to get a certain GPA. You should be working to a certain level, doing that work study and doing everything that you can in order to pay for your school and not just being a one-way street, because then it's just not fair and you don't deserve that luxury of going to school.
Great.
So I kind of agree with both of what they said. College is a privilege, and this is going to be really short, but if you want an outcome, you have to put in the work. I do feel like you should have a certain GPA requirement, for certain things so you can get that outcome. You're gonna have to put money into school because after college, when you get that job, you're gonna be seeing the benefits of it and you can just be paying that back.
So it's an investment in yourself.
Yes, I would like to say the same. I agree with everybody else, really. But I do feel like there's a need for diminished amount of money that we put in towards school, because I feel like that's really stunting a lot of the youth that are really brilliant out here, and many people just don't know because it's like they don't get the opportunity to show it. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges is when you have student loan debt and that becomes the first major bill for a graduate. That becomes the challenge where you have people that are deferring purchasing homes. You shouldn't have to make a decision between purchasing a home because you have student loan debt. And I think that's one of the challenges that you're going to continue to see. Okay, we're going to talk about some of the major decisions that I think are going to be swaying the election. Right now, we know there's been a lot of discussion about the Supreme Court and who we're going to appoint to the Supreme Court, because there are going to be some major landmark decisions and cases that are decided, one of which is going to be the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare. Do you feel that health care is a right for every American citizen, or if it's a privilege, and if you could specify why you feel that way?
It should be a right. Why is it a privilege to be healthy? There are many people who can't go to the doctor and go get certain procedures and go get certain things done because they don't have the health insurance. There are people who are kicked out of hospitals knowing that they're very, very, very sick. The hospitals still put them out and make them go home because they don't have health insurance. Or people are stuck with multiple bills that build up over the years. People who have cancer, people who may have diabetes, have heart conditions, are suffering each day because they don't make enough money to pay for their health insurance. And then they have children who come around who need to go to the doctor, get these different checkups, and they're not taken care of. And not all jobs cover your health insurance. People are very, very lucky to have those benefits, and not everybody has them. So I feel like, yes, it should be a right, because there are many people who lose their lives because they aren't getting the proper care and different things like that. And that's why I feel like it was really important that people get Obamacare and they get that Medicaid and they get that health insurance, because it can save a life.
Yeah, so I was working on a sociology assignment the other day, and some of my research came back that back in 2007, the USDA had deemed that a 3-person household amounted to about $17,000 a year, and that will put you below the poverty line. So I'm like, okay, $17,000 a year for 3 people in one house? How? So then I went to do some further research, and USDA had said that it cost about $12,000 to raise one child up to until they're 17 years old. So if you heard what I said, it doesn't match up. So when you're in debt, when you're below the poverty line, and you're not granted access to affordable health care, it leaves you stuck. If Obamacare is overruled and turned down, over 130 million people are going to lose health care. There are already people out here who are trying to make decisions like, am I going to eat dinner tonight, or am I going to save it to pay for the rest of my medicine? Am I going to pay my car note, or does it have to go to medicine? You know, people shouldn't have to be put in those situations, especially if you deem or, say that you want a great, comfortable life for every American person. If you want that, then healthcare should always be affordable. You shouldn't put people in those situations.
I agree. I think that healthcare should be a right, because we all deserve to be healthy, one. And it's not even ethical for us to have to overpay for qualities that we should be getting for free. Everybody deserves good health when trying to live nowadays, especially with the corona going around. And I also feel like if other countries found a way to do so, I feel like with the amount of resources and money that we have, I feel like we should be able to do that too.
So I just agree with everybody else. Healthcare is a right. Obamacare should not be demolished. People should not be scared to get the help they need and go to the hospital for medicine or whatever they need. They should not be scared to do that because they don't want to be in debt. Healthcare is definitely a right, and Obamacare needs to be a thing.
Wonderful. We would expect during the times of a pandemic for our federal government to have a centralized command. And we're seeing now that we didn't necessarily have a centralized command. It was decentralized to the state governors to be able to fend for themselves, to be able to address the pandemic. Please speak to me about how you feel the centralized or decentralized system to address the pandemic has worked or not worked.
I believe a decentralized system has failed because it turned into leaving these governors to run their states on their own. Then it turned into, okay, the reason that these states have a lot of violence is because they're ran by a certain political party. So that decentralization, it worked at one point, kind of gave everybody that message like, we're trusting you to do what you feel best is for your state. But I feel like that just led into higher government, specifically the president. It led into them just playing the blame game for those states having those decisions. So it kind of put, I feel like, those governors in like a lose-lose situation, because while they were giving those decisions, they were urged to do, a certain move by the president. So I think the decentralization of the government, it threw everything off.
Okay.
I definitely agree with Chaz on that one, especially about how it ended up failing in the end, because the governor's like, well, you told me to do this, but then I tried to do this, but then you're trying to make I would say like the higher groups of the federal government happy, but you're put in a situation where like your state government needs to be put in control of what's going on around you, because each state is different in like different ways. They all have unique different characteristics, unique situations. There are things happening in other states that that isn't happening in Ohio. So each governor is put in this tricky situation because they're trying to make sure that they're making the right decisions for their state, but also abide with what the president is saying. And sometimes what maybe the president is saying isn't right for that state, because the presidential party isn't here in this city. They're not dealing with different things in the state, so they don't know exactly what's going on. They only can know from what they gather, and it's always just a general thing. They don't really know the details. So I feel like sometimes they aren't able to give the best guidance on what should be done in different situations. So I feel like sometimes it should be up to the state government to figure everything out, because in other situations, trying to listen to what the president is telling you can put you in a tricky situation, because if something happens, like Chad said, it's a lose-lose situation for the state government.
Yeah, and I think, I'm sorry, just real quick, I think that it's turned into one of those things where, because everyone, the saying like, you shouldn't worry about what anyone thinks about you. We all know that at some point in time, we do worry about that. So as a politician or anybody who's in the political realm, you're sitting here, you're like, okay, I want to please the president regardless of me agreeing with him or not. It's the president of the United States, but how do I keep my constituents, pleased at the same time? So there's that pull factor. And I think, being put in situations like this don't make it any easier.
Okay, I've got two more questions for the group, but what has surprised you most about this election season?
The ignorance. There has been so much ignorance, not even just from the presidential candidates, the government candidates, but even the voters in general. I have heard some of the most ignorant things come out of people's mouths, and it's just like, do you pay attention to what's going on in your world? Are you actually putting in the effort to find out what's going on? Are you trying to make a change? Because there's sometimes I look at people like, did you really just say that? And that's a lot of what I got when I was listening to the debate, the little bits and pieces that I did get to listen to. I was like, did he really just say that? And it's kind of like, I feel like we need to pay more attention to what's going on around us so we can make a change in each situation that is put our direction. We're going through a pandemic right now, and we're going through one of the biggest elections, and I feel like in the American history. So I feel like we all need to do our part and make a change and get educated so we aren't ignorant on certain topics.
I would say the same thing. It's like the most surprising thing to me is the ignorance, but it's also the pettiness from both sides, like from each side. The first debate, it was like it was terrible. It was just shots thrown at each other, and that's just what surprised me the most.
Wow.
I feel like there's not enough emphasis put on what really matters. Why are you trying to hit below the belt to hurt someone when you're supposed to be wanting what's best for the United States of America? So when you're taking hits at your fellow candidate and you're not focusing on what we're really here for, then why should we want you as our president?
So what you're saying is it was a real turnoff to you to see all the
Yes.
negative
Definitely
punching
agree.
Yes,
and not
it's like,
actually addressing
why
the
should I
real
vote for
issues that
you?
you want to vote on. You're like, I'm trying to make a decision, and all these under-the-belt comments aren't helping me do that. Final question for tonight, and I really want to hear from each of you. If you could say one thing to somebody out in that audience tonight that's undecided about voting, what would you say to them?
Why not? That's what I really want to know. Why not vote? Why not go out and all of those things that you complain about? Why not go try to make them better? Why not try to go change what you think needs to be changed? Because being at home talking about it to your family members isn't going to change what's really going on in today's nation. You're not going to be able to make any changes or see anything be put into a better situation just sitting at home complaining and telling people, well, I'm not going to vote because what's really going to change? Is anything really going to matter? Like I said before, if multiple people keep saying that, especially kids our age, thinking that their vote doesn't matter, if we have 100 kids in each city say that in each state, just think about how many people aren't voting. So all of those people could have made a big difference in the numbers, in the percentages, because each year, sometimes it just takes a small number of people to make a change. So if we just had one more person, one more student, one more parent, educate their child a little bit more about voting and know that we should get out there and make a change in our communities, in our state, in our nation, then everything will be a lot better, and you wouldn't have to be at home complaining. You would see that change be put into effect.
Amazing.
I agree. I'm just going to piggyback off of you. I just want to say, please go out and vote. I know you're complaining. I know you're tired, but you can't wait for a change. You have to be the change. If you want things to happen, complaining about it isn't going to do anything. You have to go out and you have to vote. That's just that. I mean, I don't know what else to say, but if you want change, you have to be the change right now. I know I'm a first-time voter, so I couldn't vote last time, and I seen what happened with that. I'm not going to sit out in this election, and I definitely went to go vote. So please go vote.
Yeah, I'll have to agree with that, especially with the last part. I would say changes are going to happen overnight, and you got to be patient with it, but you got to put in the effort towards making it happen. And I will also say you can't sit around and complain if you're not going to go out and try to change the things that you're complaining about. I also say that, like, if you're gonna not vote and then watch what happens and then complain about it and then not vote again, then you're part of the problem. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, I'll say when your trash can in the alley is overflown, is full of trash, those potholes in front of your house, when your water's dirty, when you have to make decisions like, am I going to buy groceries or am I going to pay for my medicine? You're going to wish you voted. And all of it, I mean, we're young, so all of it may not seem prevalent to us now, but one day, God forbid, all of us can't be healthy. Some of us are going to have, or some of us already do have health issues that require us to take medicine. One day, we're going to think back, and you're going to say, you should have voted. So remember, it's all about the small things. And always remember to vote in your local elections and your presidential elections. And always make sure you're informed on who you're voting for and what they stand for.
Wow. I am so impressed with this group, and I want them to give their names again because I think they have been fantabulous tonight to really put us on notice that they're on fire, they're serious about voting, and I hope if somebody is sitting out there and you're not equally on fire, you need to pay attention to what we've heard tonight. So can we get your names just one more time before we close out tonight?
I'm Asia Body.
I'm Chaz Amos.
I'm Robert Baber.
I'm Deshaun Mumford.
Wonderful. Have a great evening and get out